Hey there, welcome back to my channel and welcome to my kitchen. This is going to be the first of a series of videos about cooking, not just like recipes and going through recipes, but actually trying to break down some of the techniques and the hows and the whys so that you can actually understand the food you're making and hopefully make some of your own stuff that you love. So this first two videos here are going to be about kind of what I call the 3 S's of kitchen success, which are going to be setup, safety, and storage, food storage. The first video is just going to cover setup. These are the things I think you need, the essential things I think you need to have a real minimalist kitchen setup if you're starting from scratch. So I'll talk a little bit about those things in a minute. And then the second video, which is soon to come, will cover basics of food safety and some of kind of food storage so you can make food, prep it, and have it over multiple days. Pretty much all cooking is going to require you to start with a good quality knife. So I'm going to show you a few of the knives I have here, and we're going to talk just briefly through what you should look for when you're buying a knife. It's not a deep dive on knives by any means, but you're going to get a sense of what's going to help you get started. Okay, so I've got a couple of different knives and different sets I'm using really regularly that I'll use to kind of show you a little bit about knives and what to look for. These dark-handled ones are European style, like German or French style knives, so I'll talk about those in just a second, versus these Japanese style, which are the ones I use more often. Obviously, they are well used and well worn. I probably will need to get a new set at some point, but a couple things you should know right off the bat. To start cooking in the kitchen, you need really one primary knife. Lots of knives come in sets, and the sets are nice. There's no problem with that. But if you want to just kind of go out there and spend a little more money on a nicer knife, or just want a single knife for simplicity's sake, what you're going to look at are these knives here, which are 8-inch. This one's a little bit shorter, but they're around about 8 inches. Chef knife. And 8 inches is great because you can do most kitchen tasks with it. You can use it for chopping, you can use it for even peeling certain things, you can use it with meat, cuts of meat, and it's not going to stop you with its size from really being able to kind of get into the food you're working with. So you're going to start with an 8-inch knife. The Japanese style knives down here are straighter blades, and the material themselves of the metal is a little bit different. I'm not going to get into that much here, but you can buy either one. If you like to kind of rock chop or don't know what that is yet, don't worry. Look for a knife that you like the look of, that you're going to be excited to use, and just get started with it. One thing to notice is that the handles are very different on these. This is common kind of wa style handle of Japanese blades. This octagonal kind of wood handle is very common. The European style blades are going to have a tang that goes all the way through. You can see that this metal goes all the way through, which is going to make the blade a bit heavier, but it's also very sturdy. So these rivets go all the way through the handle, and it's going to make it so that this knife probably lasts for a good long while. So those are some things you can look for when you're buying. I will include some links below for you to just pick up some inexpensive, good starter knives. I generally think if you're gonna buy a knife, get something that is gonna take you some good mileage. Like, you don't need to get a real cheap knife, but you also don't need to spend a ton of money on a really fancy knife if you're just learning how to use it. That can be a down the road purchase. So that's your starter on knives. Next, we're going to talk about cutting boards. A knife is only as good as what you're chopping on. You're not going to ruin your knife on a countertop or on something that you're going to get damaged. So what you're going to want to invest in are some cutting boards. I have 2 different kinds here that I use pretty regularly. This is a pretty heavy duty recycled plastic one that I got from a company called Material. I really like their stuff. And then this is an end-grained wood cutting board. I'm going to show you down here some more detail into these boards and how you can pick one that's going to get you started. As you can see, both these cutting boards get a lot of love. They've got some good marks in them from the knives. That's all really normal. First thing you're going to notice right away, though, is that a couple different things. One is that the plastic board looks a little bit more worn than the wood. That is because plastic does degrade over time much more than wood in my experience. So if you take good care of wood, it's going to last you longer. It's also going to be healthier. Every time I'm cutting in this board, there's the chance that some of this plastic is coming off in little ways onto my food. This is a really nice board, so it hasn't done that a ton. But if you just get a standard plastic one from Walmart or Amazon, it's a consideration to think about. You know, they're going to be cheaper, but they are also going to potentially wear quicker, and there's always the chance you're getting some plastics into your food. So that's something to think about. The nice thing about these is that they're usually you can put plastic boards in the dishwasher. They get pretty clean. They're cheap. So that's kind of that. These wood boards, on the other hand, are often more artisan. They're more expensive up front. But if you take good care of them, they will last forever, as long as you take good care of them. I've had this board for many years. I just built this big board, which is a hickory one that I'm using quite a bit. I'll show you later. But they are an investment up front. Again, there's a difference between end grain boards and side grain boards. I see people saying different things all over the place on that. If you're looking for a cutting board, again, buy a nice wood one that you like the look of, you're going to be excited to use, and also buy some conditioning kind of, what do they call it? Conditioning oil, board conditioning oil. It's like an oil that you put on that helps the wood stay a nice kind of level of moisture and protection so that it doesn't soak in juices from whatever you're working with. If you buy wood boards, when you clean them, you're just going to wipe them off. They can get a little wet, they can get some soap on them, but don't submerge them, and definitely don't put them in the dishwasher. That will ruin them pretty much right away. So don't do that. But yeah, go ahead and get a board that you like, that's a big enough size. This is a really little board, you can see. I use this for like little individual meals that I'm doing. I would recommend getting a much bigger board. This one down here is way bigger. You probably don't need a board that big, but get something big enough that you're going to be able to work on it without feeling cramped, because that makes everything a lot harder. Okay, up next is pots and pans. You don't need to go crazy on your pots and pans. In fact, I think having less is better. So I'm going to talk a little bit about kinds of pots and pans, starting with a skillet. This is an average skillet. This is a non-stick skillet, which I'm going to talk about in a second, versus this is our cast iron, trusty cast iron skillet, which we use all the time. We love this thing. So you don't need to go into a deep dive to get started. Get yourself a skillet. It's going to be fine. It's going to be a good place to start. However, if you do want to know a little bit more up front, you can start to think about what some of your options are in terms of buying a skillet. So first things first, cast iron, which is very popular these days because it does not have any, it's just iron. It doesn't have any chemical surfacing. It doesn't have any ceramic surfacing. There's nothing that can really come off into your food here. It's also very heavy, meaning it's going to hold and retain heat super well, which is great for frying, great for whatever, because you're not going to get hot spots. Sometimes if you've ever boiled something or made something and you see like a ring where you can see the stove burner coming through, that won't happen with this because the heat's going to be really evenly distributed. That being said, it's a bit more care and upkeep. I'm not going to go into how to care for cast iron in this episode, but we can talk about it in the future, and there's tons of videos on YouTube about this, so if you're curious. You can get these pretty cheap. This is like 40 or 50 bucks, Lodge pan on Amazon, and if you get one of these and you take care of it, you will have it for the rest of your life. You can have it many generations. You can find these at thrift shops or antique sales shops, you know, that are hundreds of years old. So as long as it's well maintained and taken care of, you can keep using these. So big proponent of a cast iron. That said, it's not the easiest to just like get started with because you have to learn how to take care of it and how to use it. It's a little different. That's where we're going to come in with our non-stick skilletware. So this is tri-ply. So it's different layers of metal that are kind of folded into layers so that you get really even heating. The pan is light, way lighter than this one. This one is way heavier. And it's still gonna get relatively good heat distribution. You can buy these kinds of pans. This is a ceramic nonstick, so I would avoid Teflon if I were you. I don't think it's, I don't like it, and I think it's a little bit dangerous, like things can come off in your food. I like the ceramic more, ceramic nonstick. But you can get these on Amazon or at your local store in like a big set of different pots and pans. I don't have any stainless steel cookware, but that's another option. Really great, like All Clad is great, KitchenAid, that kind of stuff. They have really great skillets. So you're gonna want a skillet that's about this big. This is probably like a 8 to 10 inch skillet. It's big enough to fit over my burner, the largest burner I have, and I can fit a couple eggs in it. So that's kind of a good size for you to imagine. Maybe 2 chicken breasts or a couple eggs is a really great size to start with. So a skillet is the first thing you're gonna want. Second thing you're gonna want is a saucepan. So again, I don't have like a big heavy duty saucepan. I do have a Dutch oven, which is kind of, we can talk more about that. It's not necessary to start with a Dutch oven, but a saucepan is gonna be for all of your cooking that is more liquid. So if you're boiling water, for pasta, if you're making a sauce, if you're making a soup, that's gonna happen in a saucepan. This is a relatively small one. I've got bigger stock pots and that kind of thing, but like I said, if we're just focusing on essentials to get set up and started, you're gonna wanna get yourself a saucepan that you can kind of start. It's got the higher sides so that liquid will stay in it, and you can kind of simmer slowly different liquids back and forth. So in my opinion, those are really the only 2 pans. A skillet and a saucepan are really the only 2 pans you need to absolutely get started in the kitchen. There's so much more. There's endless amounts of pots and pans you can buy that are gonna be helpful for different tasks. But if you're wanting to just get started, and with some of the recipes I'm gonna show you, then this is a great place to start. Okay, similar to pots and pans are gonna be sheet pans. So we're gonna talk about that now. I'm gonna show you here down on the board what I've got, a couple different pans that I think will be helpful for you. Okay, so I've got 2 different sheet pans here. They're both from a company I really like, Nordicware. I'm gonna add some of their stuff in the links below. When you buy sheet pans, the reason I'm including a little talk on sheet pans is because if you buy cheap sheet pans or sheet pans that are just kind of readily available, they are gonna warp on you. They're gonna like do this thing where they like pop. Maybe you've seen that before, and it's gonna affect your cooking times. It's also gonna potentially throw food around your oven because they can really like spring. My mom had one that like would throw food on the walls of the oven. So if you spend some time getting a slightly nicer one, couple extra dollars, but I've had these pans for a long time. This one over here is the nonstick. This is that same ceramic material I was talking about with the pots and pans. This is just an aluminum pan. Obviously it wears, you get this patina from cooking food on it. I do clean my pans. These are clean pans, but this is normal. I kind of like it. It sort of tells me I've used them a lot, which I do, but these are gonna be great for roasting. Anything that goes in the oven is gonna happen more or less on one of these pans. So yeah, get yourself some good ones. High quality aluminum pans like the ones from Nordicware here are gonna be a great place to go. And I'll include some links for recommendations below. Another thing to look at here is the size differences. So this is a big sheet pan. This is like a full sheet pan. It's quite large. You can kind of see from my hands how big it is. It's nice. You don't need one that big, especially if you're cooking for less than a family. This is nice if you have like 4 people that you're cooking for. But this is a half sheet, much smaller. I do most of our cooking on a sheet this size. We can get a lot of food on that sheet. So you can always buy an assortment. I'll include a link to a package that has 3 different sizes that are useful. Otherwise, you can individually buy a couple of pans that are going to be good. Most ovens have a drawer underneath the oven that you can put all your pots, all your sheet pans in. So take a look for that if you buy some sheet pans. Okay, last but not least are your actual utensils. There are all sorts of different ones you can get. These are silicone. I'm gonna recommend silicone for a couple reasons I'll talk about in a minute. But what you really need is a wooden spoon. Get a wooden spoon if you can. They're so useful and they're not going to scratch any of your nonstick stuff. So this one is stained and well loved, and I've had it for many years. Wooden spoon. You can get a set of silicone kind of cookware spatulas, spoons. They're really handy. The reason I like these as opposed to like the black plastic ones that you'll see often at the grocery store or at different stores are that these are going to have a much higher melting point. You're not going to run the risk as you're scraping the pan, for example, of melting these. And even if you do, this is a much better material for you than getting that black plastic in your food. So if you can get a pair of silicone, that's great. If all you have is access to the black plastic, they work great. It's going to be fine. This just might be an upgrade for you to think about later. So if we're just getting started, what I would say is you want a spatula, a wooden spoon, and a pair of tongs. The tongs are going to be really helpful for taking things out of pots of water or off of a sheet pan, moving things around if you're roasting. So we'll talk more about the use of tongs, but these are going to be kind of your 3 essentials. All the rest of it is fun. It helps. The fish spatula, the big metal spoon, they're great, but you don't need them to get started. You just need these. So get yourself a couple of these. Now you know some of the things that you need to have in your kitchen setup so that you can get started. It's not a lot. It's not complicated. Mostly it's just some essentials that you can get right away and get going. So go get some of those and be ready. The next video, which is soon to come with the second part of this, which will be the last 2 of the 3 S's, which are safety and storage. So stay tuned for that. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this or if you want to learn more about cooking and how to get past following recipes and into actually understanding the hows and whys of how to make food. Thank you so much. See you soon.